Amber, who is hearing impaired, asks, where did you learn ABC's spelling sign language in Perfect Strangers? Do you have accidents or injury in Perfect Strangers with Mark? I must have asked the sign language expert on set to teach me something. I always like to learn a little something when hearing impaired people come to a performance. They always have someone off to the side signing, and I like to learn a phrase in sign language, usually something like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, or something like that, just to make the hearing impaired people giggle. Do you have accidents or injury in Perfect Strangers with Mark? Yes. I took a chunk out of his forehead once, and I broke my front tooth because I was shaking him in an episode where, for some reason or other, I took an anger management class or something like that, and I was supposed to be angry, and then I shook him, and his head smacked into my teeth, and he got a nice little gouge on his head, and I killed this tooth. And then we went to the hospital, and we were sitting on a gurney side by side, like two little ceramic monkeys, and we were bleeding from my mouth and his head, and people were getting autographs from us. A very surreal moment. Lorraine asks, you once said that old houses have souls in addition to the architecture and craftsmanship. Are the stories behind these places important in understanding the whole? They're not, in my opinion, no, but I am in the minority on that. I don't think they're at all important in understanding the soul of the house. The house I'm in right now belongs to a very dear friend, and I am very fond of it because it's hers and her husband's. But if I was going to understand the soul of this house, it would actually stand in the way a little bit of me of grasping it to know whose it was. I once bought a house, the first house I ever bought, and the real estate agent was dying to tell me who had owned it. And I said, I don't want to know. I want the house to tell me what it has to tell me. And I loved the house, and I bought the house, and she really was just like a poodle that sees treats and has to have them, and it was showing its teeth and like that weird rusty thing they get around their eyes. She finally told me it was Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio's house, and that was fine. That was fun. A little bit of sauce on top, but that didn't have anything to do with the soul of the house, which was built before they ever looked at it. It was predated them. They didn't build it and design it. I think Mad Ludwig's castle in wherever it is, Germany or Austria or Liechtenstein, is kind of cute that he had something to do with it, but no. I mean, my body is DNA and things that are tens of thousands and millions of years old, and to understand a human being, a Martian doesn't need to know. No, not the soul of it. The story of it is interesting, but the story of it does not inform the essence of the house, because the essence of the house really comes from the builder and the architect and things like that. Robin asks, what is your favorite dishes that your mom makes? Well, her eggplant parmesan is a wonderful thing. Her lasagna is amazing. Her stew, her delicious beef stew is amazing. There's a bit of a battle in that house. I like cookie dough better than I like any cookies, and she says that she wants to make cookies to make me happy, and I say, but cookie dough makes me happy, but cookie dough isn't a cookie to her, and I don't like the cookies as much as I like the dough, so there's tension. She used to make pizza, it was delicious. When you're looking to restore an older home to its original glory, okay, so right there we're already on the wrong track. I don't restore homes to their original glory. Some people do that, and that's nice, but that's not what I do. Because original glory means day one. It's like resetting your computer to factory settings where it's nothing. It's blank and shiny. I don't do that at all. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. What characteristics draw you to the home other than just the year it was built? Well, yes. So I was built in 1959. I guess I was built in 1958 and born in 59. But that isn't why people give me the time of day. It's because of how I've evolved in my head or heart or whatever it is. I don't care particularly about the year, although I see fewer houses that interest me after 1845. But I think the most interesting part of this question is I don't believe in restoring things to their original glory. If you restored a person to their original glory, they'd be a newborn baby. No conversation, no focus, no nothing. They restore places like the White House to their quote unquote original glory, and all the gold is bright and shiny and everything's glossy. And what does that say? Nothing. I like to pick, just like when you have trouble on your computer and it says pick a restore point, you don't go back to zero. You go back to before the problem. So I just looked at a house the other day that was extraordinary, and I guess there was an earthquake when the house was about 40 years old. And the earthquake really caused unbelievable damage. So if I was working on that house, I would restore it to when it was right before the earthquake. Certainly not day one when it was all bright and shiny, because it didn't stay that way. And Notre Dame Cathedral, say, in Paris, it's got the most beautiful patina on it. I suppose when it was made in around 1100, it was white, maybe, I don't know what it was, or maybe it was even painted, but I wouldn't try and get it back to that. That would be jarring. I think mellow is nice, and maybe if it got some kind of black plaque on it from traffic and stuff, maybe it'd be nice to get that off. But no, find a restore point that's not day one. Day one, no, that'd be like restoring the universe to right after the Big Bang, just gas. Like just gas, just smelly old gas. Not even any reptiles. Shane asks, hey Bronson. Hey Shane, I was a huge fan of Perfect Strangers as a kid. Thank you. I also love the character you played in True Romance. Thank you. How much fun was it filming that movie? Not a lot of fun, but that was because I was putting myself through hell to make sure I was in the same place as the character who was having a very rough time. But I did that so that I would be where he was. So it was almost, it's quite painful. Were you excited to be acting with Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken? Well, no, because I didn't have any scenes with them. And I didn't know how amazing their scene was till after the movie came out. I didn't have any scenes with them at all. But it was nice being in that movie. It was very exciting being in the movie. Stephanie asks, I always ask people this because I'm a genealogist and these things fascinate me. What is your favorite, fondest childhood memory? Well, the first one that comes to mind is I saw two of the greatest performers of the 20th century at the height of their powers. In 1965, I saw Rudolf Nureyev and Margot Fonteyn dance all the classic ballets with the Royal Ballet. And I was a very little boy, but I knew that I was watching geniuses. And I think the excitement of that, and also knowing as I watched that what they were doing was as good as it got in terms of telling a story to an audience with your body and your emotions. It was pretty amazing. That's just the first thing that comes to mind, but that was pretty good. In that same line of questioning, if you could meet any one of your ancestors who you never got to meet personally, who would it be and why? Well, it would be my grandfather, Francesco. And all of us do. We feel like we know him because my mother has talked of him so fondly. And I based the character of Balki on him because he was supposed to, he had a big heart and was in a way rather innocent and loving. And so I never met him, but I put some of him into that, or what I imagined he would be like. Beverly asks, if you had the option of filling a room with many priceless antiques or one good piece, which would you choose? Well, I would always choose one good piece because as soon as I didn't even get through the first sentence, filling a room with many anything is bad. You can see in a museum masterpieces all crowded together. And the thing to remember when you go to a museum, which you have to use your imagination, is that all those masterpieces were never, ever, ever, ever all together in one room. Each masterpiece sometimes had its own church, or was so incredibly valuable and important that it had its own room. It's only when rich people started to accumulate paintings, the only time you might have seen several Van Goghs in one room might have been if you'd visited Van Gogh's studio. And I could guarantee you right now that that studio was covered with, rags covered with oil paint. And apparently he was very smelly, which is interesting because there was a woman who lived to be 120 something who knew him. But that's not important. He was a genius. But the only time you would have seen that many Van Goghs together would be if you'd been lucky enough to visit his extremely smelly studio. But now when you see too many Van Goghs together with fancy lighting and all, that's not the way it's supposed to be, because each one of those was made for a specific buyer. And when you see religious art, each masterpiece was the centerpiece of one great cathedral. Maybe there were some others inside chapels, but when you go to a museum, and it's great that they've saved them, but you see 5 great altarpieces in one room. It is not the way it's supposed to be. Greek temples had one beautiful statue of a god or goddess that was the centerpiece of the whole thing. And when you go to a museum and you see 30 of them, that's not the way it was. So many of anything is not the way to do a room, because a great work of art is always meant to pull all the focus. Even a beautiful olive tree or a beautiful orange tree or something is enough in a little cloister, in a little courtyard. A lot of anything, no, I would never do that. Because as soon as you take one exquisite thing and give it a lot of space, then you keep studying it and wondering about it. If there's 20 things, I would rather go to somebody's house and see one little dish of the most wonderful little chocolate cookies and know that that was their favorite special recipe than go to a bakery and go, oh my gosh. And then there's a woman in front of you saying, could I try that? Just one is fine. One focuses you, and that's a beautiful thing. Like one candle in the room, I think that's very beautiful. But that's just me. I'm very boring. I don't like lots of stuff. No. I don't like a lot of stuff. Unless it's a lot of grains of sand on a beach. Now that's nice. You get like billions of grains of sand, but that's different. Trina asks, hi Bronson. Hi Trina. I loved watching you and Mark on Perfect Strangers when I was a teenager. That's good. My question is the Maposian vocabulary. Well, it's Mipiot, actually. Mipiot. Were you responsible for completely making that up yourself? Basically, yes. Or was it a collaborative effort where others came up with off-the-wall words? Well, they did come up with some words. They came up with Bibi Babka and things like that. But I think in general, I ran it through the mill up here and made it, because I didn't want it to be exactly Greek. Had to be Greek-ish, and then have a little twist in it, and then nobody knew what that twist would be. But I think a few things were theirs, but the long speeches were mine. Annette asks, I guess the thing that I would ask is, how do you keep yourself afloat when things get overwhelming, when too many things are coming at you at once, or when things don't go the way that you'd like them to? Oh, I just meditate. Best thing in the world. But you don't have to do what they show on the internet. You don't have to sit with your legs in a pretzel and have your breathing a certain way. You just make up your own way. But that solves everything. As a matter of fact, I think I'll do it right now. Oh yeah, I feel better.